COVID-19 pandemic spread across the US and the globe, the way companies conduct their business and day-to-day operations has drastically changed. Almost overnight, 2/3 of all employees in the United States found themselves working from home due to social distancing and stay-at-home orders. It has been roughly 2 months since the majority of the country has been under quarantine, and even though some states started to slowly reopen, we are far from seeing the end of this pandemic. In the next few months, even as states reopen and businesses try to get back to normal, the so-called new normal is here to stay. In fact, Twitter just announced this week that they will allow 25% of their workforce to work from home indefinitely. So today, I would like to talk about how companies and their leaders can help employees to stay productive and engaged while employees work from home. I would also like to talk about how employees themselves can ensure that they are motivated and productive, but at the same time, they are able to maintain healthy and successful family and social life in this remote work environment. Even before the pandemic, for many employees, telework has become an integral part of routine work interactions, complementing and often replacing face-to-face and phone conversations. For the past decade or so, there has been a lot of research on the effects of telepressure on employee health and well-being. For example, studies have shown that email and electronic device checking has become a widespread addiction, which can lead to lower employee detachment from work, high burnout, poor sleep quality, and other research has linked continuous availability to stress and low productivity. In my own research with my colleagues, in one study, we have found that even when employees do not spend time answering and monitoring their work communication, the dangerous effects of organizational expectations for constant availability can have deleterious effects on employees. For example, they can trigger email-related anxiety in employees, poor health, and poor sleep quality. But it can also damage health of their partners and ruin relationships. In another research project, we also looked at organization-related outcomes and found that this constant connection to work, whether actual through spending time on work or checking emails, or even mental kind of thinking about work leads to emotional exhaustion and burnout in employees that can not only negatively affect work-life balance, but it also increases employee desire to leave the company. Now, since companies transferred to all remote mode due to pandemic, there are no more physical boundaries between work and non-work environment, as employees conduct their daily jobs in the presence of other family members and kids while schools and daycare facilities are closed. Early evidence from the research my colleagues and I are conducting shows that the damaging effects of telepressure we knew about before the pandemic not only remained, but in fact became exacerbated in this new remote-only work environment. We believe that the other two important and distinct factors of this pandemic as compared to other natural disasters contributed to these findings. Number one, there's a high degree of uncertainty surrounding this crisis' severity, reach, durations, and health and economic outcomes. And number two, the high degree of isolation imposed through social distancing orders and all remote work. So in several studies where my colleagues and I are examining the early effects of the outbreak on employee well-being and work-related outcomes, we find that there is an increase in emotional exhaustion and there is lower work-life balance. And these are the key two factors that drive a slew of negative outcomes, such as high rates of employee insomnia, depression, and financial anxiety, as well as increase in counterproductive work behaviors such as work withdrawal, tardiness, and absenteeism. We cannot control the environment, but as our preliminary data indicates, organizations can positively impact employee well-being and discourage deviant behaviors by focusing on meeting employee basic psychological needs, particularly during times of crisis. So what can companies do? Well, first and foremost, companies need to recognize that employees are vulnerable to stress and family challenges during this time. So when leaders and supervisors express genuine compassion and empathy, it can not only let employees know that company cares, but can also lead to increase in extra role citizenship behaviors on the part of employees. In another set of studies that my colleagues and I are currently conducting, our results indicate that the importance of expressing positive emotions, particularly compassion. We find that expression of compassion by the supervisor can not only lead to gratitude on part of employees, but also initiate a cycle of compassion where people express it back not only to their supervisors, but also to their coworkers, and it increases helping in organization. Second, providing clear and flexible formal policies regarding work in remote environment is critical both for employee productivity and also for their mental health. For instance, sticking to a 9 to 5 schedule probably is not realistic in current environment, especially for people that need to take care of kids or other family members. So being flexible and allowing discretion in terms of taking breaks from so-called regular workday or even composing their own schedule can let employees recuperate emotionally from work-related thoughts and also reduce chances of burnout, and will help efficiently manage their work and family time. Third, companies need to allow for more job control and autonomy for employees working from home instead of constant checking in and monitoring their work. Fourth, efforts to increase feelings of belongingness, kind of being part of the company, fostering the spirit and the culture, may help employees feel less isolated and alone during this time. For example, this could be done by creating virtual space for more personal, informal connections instead of gathering only for required formal meetings. Keeping up team rituals or socializing routines that workers used to do when they worked in face-to-face environment may be tweaked and used for online environment. For example, dressing for casual Fridays, having lunch or coffee breaks together approximately at the same time. All of this can help maintain the spirit. Employees themselves also need to be proactive about protecting their resources and their lives during this crisis. First, maintaining physical boundaries between work and family or social lives is critical. For instance, if you work in a company where expectations of constant monitoring did not change during COVID-19 pandemic, you may want to take up initiative to set up specific times when you are available and inform your supervisors and your coworkers about your availability. Doing the same thing and informing your significant others about your work schedule and your family members can help as well. Again, this is given that, for example, your kids can understand this. Maintaining these physical boundaries should help to reduce work-related interruptions when you're spending your time with family, and can also reduce family interventions when you are engaged in work-related activities. Second, as I mentioned before, feelings of work-related loneliness can arise even when people are surrounded by their loved ones or family members. So it's really important that individuals try themselves to reach out to coworkers informally, whether asking for help or advice, or just to chat to maintain the work connections. Third, as I mentioned before, expressing gratitude, empathy, and compassion to others is really important. And what's interesting, that research shown that expressing these emotions when someone is mentally or emotionally depleted actually helps to restore resources. It helps to counteract fatigue. It reduces negative emotions such as anxiety and fear, as well as can help to build resilience and successfully bounce back from adverse events. Fourth, it's also important to remember that even during these tough times, during crisis, people always need to find time to engage in things for themselves that they actually enjoy. So whether it's time to exercise, to read a book, to meditate, it is your time, and you really need set a schedule where you have these windows where it's only your time and you engage in these activities. And of course, while you're doing this, It's very important to be mentally present. Research on mindfulness shows that the importance of being mindful and present during activities in restoring individual emotional, cognitive, and physical states. And finally, studies show that practicing self-compassion is a very helpful tactic in times of crisis. It is okay not to do everything perfectly. And I know this is especially challenging for women that often strive to be perfect, but you are allowed to take a break. Remember that. Just do what feels right at the moment. This is the time, just take it one step at a time, one step in front of the other, and remember, we all struggling. In conclusion, while COVID-19 outbreak has brought a lot of challenges to the world of work, employees still rely on organizations to provide support and guidance in these tumultuous times. So those organizations and leaders that recognize this need may not only do well for employees and their families, but may also and ultimately benefit their companies through increased employee engagement and performance, decreased deviance, and higher organizational commitment. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you.